At my father's retirement lunch, my mother tapped her fork against a glass and told 60 people I had made my money by abandoning family. 30 minutes after she emptied the $42,000 apartment fund she could only reach because I had trusted her with emergency access. I kept the small brass safe deposit key in my fist and let her finish, because the woman pouring coffee behind her had just heard the one sentence my mother could not afford to say out loud. My mother thought she was shaming me in front of my father's coworkers, my cousins, and half our church. She did not understand yet that she had chosen the only room where her favorite story could finally break. I need to go back, because that moment did not start with the speech. It started at a credit union counter 2 years earlier, when my mother slid a pen toward me and said, "Just put me on the account in case something happens to you." I was 27, working nights at a children's hospital in Columbus, and saving for a small condo with a cracked patio and ugly brown carpet I planned to rip out myself. The account was mine. Every dollar in it came from missed vacations, packed lunches, and extra shifts nobody wanted on holiday weekends. My mother called it our safety net, before the teller had even printed the form. Her name was Denise, and people loved her before they feared her. She remembered birthdays, carried casseroles into funerals, and cried fast enough to make other people apologize. She also knew exactly which sentence made me smaller. "Your father gave his back to a factory so you could have a steady life," she said that day, soft enough for only me to hear. My job was not easy, and my father had not paid my nursing school loans, but the shape of the sentence still worked. It made my independence sound stolen. It made my savings sound like a family asset I was hiding. The teller, a woman named Marcy with silver hair and a red lanyard, looked from my mother to me. "You understand joint access means she can withdraw without your permission," Marcy said. My mother smiled before I could answer. "She understands. She's a good daughter." That was how my mother trapped people. She put the compliment on you first, then made refusal feel like proof you did not deserve it. I signed because my father had just been treated for chest pain, because my mother had called me crying from a hospital parking lot, and because I still believed emergencies were the only thing she would touch. Marcy did not argue with me. She only pushed a tiny brass key across the counter, the key to the safe deposit box I had opened for my condo papers, and the cashier's check I hoped to need soon. "Keep this separate," she said. My mother laughed. "We don't keep secrets in our family." Marcy's hand stayed on the counter a second too long. That pause was the first small crack in the world my mother controlled. I did not understand it then. I only put the key on my ring and felt guilty for liking the weight of something that was mine. For the first few months, nothing dramatic happened. That was part of why I missed the trap. My mother did not empty the account right away. She asked for small things that sounded temporary. $400 for my father's prescription deductible. $200 because the water heater failed. $900 to keep my brother Kyle's car from being repossessed. Although Kyle was 31 and somehow always between checks. Each time, she told me before she took it. And each time, she thanked me in a way that made me feel chosen. Then she started telling other people I had stepped up. That phrase sounded warm in public and heavy in private. My father, Ray, was not innocent, but he was quieter. He did not ask directly. He let my mother do the asking, then looked relieved when I gave in. If I hesitated, he rubbed the old scar on his wrist from a machine injury and said, "Your mom worries." He made her pressure look like love. My brother made it look normal. Kyle would sit at my parents' kitchen table eating takeout I had paid for and say, "You're the one with real money, Em." My name is Emily, but in my family, M usually came right before a request. The first time I said no, the request was not small. My mother wanted me to cover 3 months of their mortgage because she had rearranged some bills. We were in my parents' kitchen, and she had my father's pill bottles lined up by the sink where I could see them. That was her stagecraft. She never pointed to the fear. She placed it where my eyes would land. I said I could help with 1 month, not 3. My mother went still, then opened the old green recipe box she kept on top of the fridge. I thought she was reaching for a coupon. She pulled out a folded stack of receipts instead. "Dance shoes," she said, tapping the first one. "Braces, summer camp, the dress for your scholarship dinner." She had kept a private ledger of motherhood, not a budget, not memories, charges. I remember staring at the receipts and realizing she had not saved them because she was sentimental. She had saved them because someday I might forget my place. My father looked down at his coffee. Kyle kept chewing. No one told her to stop. That silence taught me more than the receipts did. I paid the 3 months. I also stopped telling my mother how much I had saved. That was my first quiet act of disobedience, and it was not enough. She adapted. When she could not get numbers from me, she started getting moods. "You sound comfortable," she would say if I answered the phone rested. "Must be nice." If I mentioned a patient's family bringing cookies to the nurse's station, she said, "Glad somebody feeds you. We're stretching soup over here." She did not need my bank balance. She only needed me to feel watched whenever I had something she did not. Then came the condo. It was not fancy, which made me want it more. It had a narrow laundry closet, a balcony that faced a brick wall, and a kitchen drawer that stuck unless you lifted it first. I loved that drawer, because nobody in my family had an opinion about it. The seller accepted my offer on a Thursday. I drove to my parents' house that evening with a grocery bag of chicken, toilet paper, and my father's favorite sugar-free mints. I planned to tell them after dinner. I wanted, stupidly, one clean congratulations. My mother saw the folder under my arm before I said a word. "What's that?" she asked. I told her. Not the amount. Not the closing date. Just that I had found a place. Her face did something quick and ugly, then recovered into pride so smooth I almost believed it. She hugged me with one arm and said, "A door of your own." Well, we'll see if it's the right door. I should have heard the warning. Instead, I heard the word pride and let myself breathe for one more night. The morning of my father's retirement lunch. I checked my account in the hospital parking lot and saw a balance so low I thought the app had glitched. $42,000 was gone. Not pending. Gone. I called the credit union 3 times before I reached anyone, but the lunch was already starting. My father had worked 40 years for that room full of people, and my mother had already texted me twice, asking where I was. So I walked into the banquet hall with the brass safe deposit key in my pocket, my phone burning in my hand, and the last thing, my mother was at the front table in a pale blue blouse, accepting compliments like she was the one retiring. Kyle sat beside her, grinning too hard. My father looked tired but happy, and for a few minutes, that almost stopped me. Then my mother stood, tapped her fork against the glass, and told the room I had become the kind of daughter who thought a paycheck made her too good for family. She said it sweetly at first. That was worse. "Emily works hard," she told them, smiling like a saint. "But sometimes children grow up and forget the people who made their lives possible." A few people made soft, sympathetic sounds. My cousin Angie looked at me with the kind of pity that asks no questions. My father stared at his plate. Kyle would not meet my eyes. Then my mother tilted her head and said, "Some people buy walls and doors and call that success. I still call family the only real home." I felt the brass key bite into my palm. I was about to stand when the coffee server behind my mother leaned close with a pot in her hand, and Denise turned slightly, thinking nobody important could hear. "Kyle gets his truck before Emily gets a door we can't walk through," she said. The server froze. I froze too, not because I was shocked she had said it, but because someone outside the family had heard the exact truth before Denise could dress it up. My mother was still smiling at the table when I asked, loud enough for the nearest cousins to hear, "Does Dad's heart medication come with a food truck now?" The smile stayed on her face for 1 second too long. Forks stopped. Angie lowered her phone. Kyle looked at our mother first, not at me, and that told me he already knew. Ray stared down at his folded napkin like it might give him permission to disappear. Denise did what Denise always did when cornered. She changed the shape of the room before anyone could name what she had done. "Emily is tired," she said gently, as if I were a patient she had just medicated. "She worked all night. She's confused and she is choosing a terrible moment to punish her family." The coffee server was still standing behind me with the check folder pressed to her apron. I had not known her name until that day, but I knew the look on her face. It was not pity, it was recognition. "I heard what you said," the server said, not loudly, but cleanly. "You said Kyle gets his truck before she gets a door." That one sentence did not give me my money back. It did something smaller and more dangerous to my mother. It broke her monopoly on the story. Denise turned toward the server's name tag. "Nora." Then she gave Nora the soft laugh that had worked on teachers, pastors, neighbors, and every nurse who ever told her visiting hours were over. "Sweetheart, this is a family matter. Nora did not move. Then don't discuss it by the coffee, she said. A few people looked away because looking away was easier than choosing a side. But the air had changed. Before that moment, I was the daughter being shamed for abandoning family. After that moment, people had to wonder why my mother needed my money to keep me from owning a front door. Kyle shoved his chair back. It wasn't stealing, he said, too fast. You put Mom on the account. There it was. Not, what money? Not, I don't know what you're talking about. He went straight to the technical part because that was the part they had rehearsed. I wanted to yell. I wanted to call him what he was. Instead I said, "How much did she promise you?" Kyle's face tightened. Denise cut in before he answered. "Your brother is trying to work. That is more than I can say for someone who thinks a condo makes her better than us." That line should have crushed me. A year earlier, it would have. I would have heard "better than us" and rushed to prove I was still loyal. I would have offered a payment plan for my own stolen savings. But Nora's sentence was still hanging there, and it gave me enough space to hear the trick. Denise was not defending need. She was defending access. She wanted my paycheck, my guilt, and my silence, all under the same roof. I stood up and put my napkin on the table. "I'm not discussing this with 60 people, I said. "You already did," Denise snapped, and the sweetness cracked just enough for the church ladies to hear the real voice underneath. Ray reached for my wrist, not hard, but with that familiar, helpless pressure. Don't make this worse." That was the first time I pulled my arm away from my father in public. His hand closed on empty air. I said, "Dad, worse already happened, you just watched it." Outside, the parking lot heat hit me like a slap. I had worked a 12-hour night shift, I had not slept, and my apartment fund was gone. My mother followed me before I reached my car. Kyle came behind her, and Ray trailed last, slow and pale, because Denise had made his weakness part of every argument for years. She dropped the wounded mother voice now that there were fewer witnesses. "You embarrassed me at your father's lunch." I looked at her and almost laughed because she believed that was the headline. Not the money. Not the lie. Her embarrassment. "Where is the 42,000? I asked. Denise crossed her arms. "Safe." That word made my stomach turn. "Safe where?" Kyle said, "Invested." Ray whispered, "Denise." She shot him one look, and he stopped. But Kyle needed me to understand his future was more important than my home, so he kept going. A used truck came up in Akron. If we waited, it was gone. "Mom said you had money sitting there doing nothing." He said doing nothing about the money I had saved while cleaning up after sick children at 3 in the morning. He said it about the money I had built, one missed dinner, and one extra shift at a time. I asked Kyle, "Did you sign anything?" His mouth opened, then closed. Denise stepped between us. "Do not interrogate your brother like a criminal." That told me enough. Kyle had not just received help. He had attached himself to something that could cost him if it fell apart. His own interest was now tied to my silence. That made him more dangerous than a spoiled brother. It made him a partner. My phone buzzed in my bag. It was Marcy from the credit union. She did not leave a long message. She said, "Emily, I saw activity this morning. If you have not already come in, come before closing." My mother heard enough to understand the name. Her face changed again. Not fear yet. Calculation. "You called the bank?" she asked. "Marcy called me." Denise's voice lowered. "You go in there angry, and you will make your father look like he raised a thief." Ray flinched at the word thief, but he still did not deny the theft. That was the emotional hook she had left, and she knew exactly where to place it. If I defended myself, I hurt Dad. If I stayed quiet, I protected the people who had used him as a shield. For most of my life, that choice had worked on me. That day, I looked at Ray and said, "If you don't want to look like you raised a thief, then stop standing beside one." I got in my car before I could take it back, and for the first time, I did not turn around when my mother called my name. At the credit union, Marcy did not waste time on sympathy. She took me into her small office, shut the door, and said, "Your savings is gone, but your next paycheck doesn't have to be." That sentence steadied me more than any comfort would have. I was not there to cry over the account. I was there to stop the bleeding. Marcy slid a plain form toward me and tapped one box. New individual account, new direct deposit, no family access. She did not promise miracles. She gave me a clean lever, and I pulled it. When I handed over my driver's license, the brass key came out with it and hit her desk. Marcy glanced at it. Safe deposit? I nodded. The box held my condo papers, my birth certificate, and the cashier's check I had already bought for the earnest money before Denise drained the rest. I had thought the key was just for storage. Now it felt like the one part of my life my mother had not touched. Marcy walked me to the vault, and for the first time all day, nobody called my independence selfish. Nobody asked if my father's chest hurt. Nobody told me my brother's dream was my debt. Inside the small metal box, my papers were still there. So was a sealed envelope from the title office, with the closing estimate I had been too scared to open after Nora's sentence changed everything. I opened it in the vault hallway, with Marcy standing a few feet away, giving me privacy without leaving me alone. The number at the bottom made my throat tighten. I did not have enough anymore. Denise had not only stolen money I saved, she had timed it so I would lose the condo, unless I found a way to cover the gap fast. Marcy saw my face and said, "Bad?" I folded the paper once. "Not dead," I said, though my voice shook. "Just wounded." Then my phone lit up again. This time it was a text from my mother, short enough to fit on the lock screen. "Come home tonight. Bring the key. We need to settle what belongs to this family." I looked down at the brass key in my hand, and I understood that Denise had figured out one piece too late. She had emptied the account, but she still did not know what else I had locked away. My mother had set a pen beside my empty chair, and Kyle said, "Sit down and sign before you make this uglier." Like the theft of my condo money was now a paperwork problem I had caused. I was standing in the kitchen I grew up in, still wearing my hospital badge from a night shift, and my brother's new truck was parked outside with dealer tags still on it. Denise looked at my purse before she looked at my face. That told me the real reason she wanted me home. I had not brought the brass key. I had driven back to the credit union first and left it sealed in an envelope with Marcy, who did not ask for the whole story. She only said, "Do not walk into a hungry room carrying food." So when my mother held out her hand and said, "Give me the key, Emily," I felt the first calm thing I had felt all day. I said, "No." Denise blinked once. It was small, but it was the first time in my life I had seen her reach for control and touch empty air. Ray sat at the table with one hand around a coffee mug he was not drinking from. Kyle stood by the counter, blocking the drawer where Denise kept old bills and takeout menus, as if I might steal something from them. Denise pushed the pen toward my chair. "Then sign this," she said. "You are going to acknowledge that the money was never just yours. You used this family your whole life, and now you want to act like a stranger." The paper had 3 short lines typed on it. It said I accepted the withdrawals as repayment for family support, and I would make no complaint against Denise, Ray, or Kyle. I did not sit. That made Denise's voice soften, which was always more dangerous than yelling. "Honey, you are tired. You are emotional. You got embarrassed at lunch, and now people are in your ear." She meant Nora. She meant Marcy. She meant any woman who had looked at me and not seen an ungrateful daughter. "This is how families settle things privately," Denise said. "You do not drag your mother through mud because you want a fancy apartment." "It was a 1-bedroom condo," I said. "And you took $42,000. Kyle laughed under his breath, too fast. "There it is, the number again. You keep saying it like we bought a boat." I looked past him through the side window. His truck sat in the driveway, black and high, and knew enough that the tires still had blue chalk marks on them. I said, "Then give me the keys." Kyle's face changed before he could stop it. He looked at Denise. Not at me. That tiny look did more than any argument. It showed me who had the plan and who had the prize. Denise recovered first. "Do not be ridiculous." I kept my voice level. "If my savings were family money, then the truck is family property. Put the keys on the table." Ray shifted in his chair. Kyle's hand went to his pocket. He did not pull the keys out. He pressed his palm against them like I had reached inside his life and found the truth. The room went quiet enough that I heard the refrigerator kick on. For years, Denise had called my money shared when she needed it, and called my needs selfish when I wanted any of it back. Now the rule had been spoken out loud, and nobody wanted to live by it. Kyle snapped first. "I needed that truck to work." "Where?" I asked. "You quit 2 jobs last year because the managers were disrespectful." His mouth tightened. "This one is different." Denise cut in. "He has a chance now. A real chance. You already have a career." There it was. My brother's chance was sacred. My home was optional. My night shifts, my bruised feet, the birthday dinners I missed, the extra holidays I worked for shift differential, all of it became invisible because I had managed not to collapse. Ray finally spoke. Your mother was scared, he said. We all were. I looked at him. Scared of what? He stared into the mug. Denise answered for him. Scared that you would leave and forget where you came from. She said it like love. It landed like a threat. The new information was not that she wanted the money. I already knew that. The new information was that my condo had scared her before I ever made an offer. She had not drained my account in a panic. She had done it to keep the door from opening. I stepped closer to the table and turned the paper around so I could read it without touching it. Denise had left no blank for an amount. No dates. No list. Just a sentence that would make their story clean. Who typed this? I asked. Kyle looked away. Denise said, that does not matter. It matters because you are asking me to lie in writing. Denise's smile disappeared. Careful. That one word pulled me back to being 16, being told I had ruined Thanksgiving because I asked why Kyle did not have to help clean. It still had power. I hated that it still had power. But it no longer moved my hand. I picked up the pen. Denise's shoulders lowered, almost in relief. Kyle let out a breath. Ray closed his eyes. For half a second, they thought I had chosen peace the old way, the way where I swallowed the damage so nobody else had to taste it. Instead, I wrote one sentence across the bottom of the page. I did not agree to this. Then I put the pen down. Denise stared at the words as if I had spit on the table. You always were dramatic, she said. No, I said. I was useful. You liked that better. Kyle lunged for the paper, but I got to it first and folded it once. Denise stood so fast her chair hit the wall. That belongs to me. Then you should not have asked me to sign it. I put it in my purse. It was not enough to fix my account. It was not enough to save the condo. But it was the first thing in that house with my refusal written on it, and I was not leaving it behind for Denise to shred into her version of the truth. Ray said my name, and for 1 weak second I wanted him to say something fatherly. He did not. He said, your mother can't handle stress like this. I looked at him, and felt something inside me close. Not slam, just close. Then stop handing her other people's lives to manage. His face reddened. Denise pointed at the door. If you walk out now, do not come back crying when you realize strangers do not love you like family. I looked at Kyle's truck through the window. Strangers warned me. Family emptied me. I was halfway to the front door when Kyle followed me into the hall. His voice dropped low, away from Denise. You don't understand what should do if you keep pushing. I turned around. He looked younger there, scared and angry, and still selfish enough to think his fear mattered more than what he had helped take. What did she do, Kyle? I asked. He swallowed. From the kitchen, Denise called his name once, sharp as a snapped cord. Kyle looked back, then leaned closer and said, she called your seller this afternoon. She told them you might not be able to close. Then he stepped away from me like the words had burned his mouth. My realtor called before I got out of my parents' subdivision and said, Emily, did your mother tell the seller your down payment was stolen from your father? I pulled into a gas station because my hands went cold on the wheel. Tess, my realtor, did not sound curious. She sounded like someone trying not to let panic enter a business call. The seller's daughter wants to pause everything, she said. Your mother called her directly. She said there's a family dispute, and that if they sell to you, they may get dragged into it. For a few seconds, I could only hear the pump clicking at the car beside me. Denise had not just emptied my account. She had walked ahead of me to the one door I was trying to open and told the person on the other side that I was unsafe to trust. Who did she call? I asked. Tess said, Carla Benton, the seller's daughter. She handles everything for her dad now. Then Tess lowered her voice. Emily, there's a backup buyer. Cash. Carla says she can't risk a messy closing. I wanted to say, my mother is lying. But the worst part about a good lie is that it uses one true piece as bait. There was a family dispute now. My money was missing now. My closing was short now. If I sounded frantic, I would become the exact woman Denise had described. So I said, can Carla meet me tonight? Tess paused. She said she doesn't want drama. I looked at the folded waiver on the passenger seat, the one Denise had tried to make me sign, with my line across it. I did not agree to this. Tell her I don't either, I said. Tell her I'll meet her at the condo, and I'll leave if she asks me to. Carla was already in the parking lot when I got there, standing beside a small gray SUV with her arms crossed. Tess stood near the condo steps, trying to look neutral and failing. The porch light was on, and through the front window, I could see the empty living room where I had once pictured a cheap couch and my shoes by the door. Carla did not shake my hand. I'm sorry, she said. My father is 81. I cannot let him get pulled into somebody's family fight. That sentence hurt because it was reasonable. Denise had not chosen a wild accusation. She had chosen the one fear that would make a protective daughter step back. I kept my voice even. Your father should not be pulled into it, I said. Neither should you. Carla's face tightened. But she listened. I told her only what mattered. I had saved my own down payment. My mother had access to an old account. Money had been moved without my consent. I had opened a new account that afternoon. I was trying to fix the shortfall before closing. I did not hand Carla the waiver right away, because I could feel how any paper in my hand might look like more trouble. I let the truth stay human first. Carla asked, Then why did your mother say your father's name was on the money? I said, Because she knows people trust a parent faster than a daughter who sounds desperate. That landed, not as proof, as recognition. Carla looked away toward the dark front window, and her voice changed. She didn't only warn me, she said. She offered to buy it. I thought I had misheard her. Tess straightened. Carla went on. Your mother said if the sale fell through, she could keep the condo in the family and let you move in later, when you were thinking clearly. The words moved through me slowly, one blade at a time. Denise had not called only to stop my closing. She had tried to step into my place and own the door herself. I almost laughed, because it was too cruel to fit inside normal speech. Denise wanted my savings, my obedience, and even my escape route with her name on it. Carla saw something on my face and said, softer. She said you were exhausted from night work. She made it sound like she was protecting you. That was Denise's gift. She could make a cage sound like a blanket. I reached into my coat pocket and touched nothing, because the brass key was not there. I had left it locked away with Marcy. That empty pocket steadied me more than the key itself would have. Denise could chase my story from person to person, but she still could not reach everything. Carla said, I need a clean answer by tomorrow at noon. Not a speech, not a family meeting. A clean answer. Can you close or not? Tess started to speak for me, but I raised my hand a little. If I cannot show a real path by noon, release the condo, I said. The sentence tasted like blood, but it gave Carla something Denise had not given her. A boundary that protected her father too. Carla studied me for a long second. No calls from your mother, she said. No visite. No surprises. I said, if she contacts you again, don't answer for my sake. Answer for yours. Carla nodded once, and that nod was not trust yet. It was a narrow bridge. I went straight from the condo to the hospital for my shift, because calling in would have handed Denise another weapon. Before I reached the time clock, my charge nurse, Lisa, stepped out of the staffing office and said, Emily, do you have a minute? My stomach dropped before she finished the sentence. Lisa closed the door behind us. A woman who said she was your mother called the unit, she said. She asked if we had noticed confusion or instability. She said she was worried you might make financial decisions while sleep-deprived. For one hot second, I saw Denise at our kitchen table, calm as ever, moving from bank to cellar to workplace like she was turning off lights in my life. Lisa waited for me to react. I did not give her the explosion my mother had described. I gave her the truth in one line. My mother took money from an account she had access to, and now she is trying to make me look unstable so I won't challenge it. Lisa looked at me for a long second, then said, Then we document the call, and you finish your shift if you are safe to work. I said, I am. She nodded. Good. Do not let a family fight enter through the hospital doors unless there is an actual emergency. That was the first time all night I understood something simple. Denise could call anywhere she wanted, but not every door would open for her. At 6:18 inches the morning, Lisa pulled me off the floor and said, Your mother is downstairs telling security you're too unstable to care for patients. I had just finished hanging antibiotics for a little boy, who knew my name better than half my family did, and Denise was in the hospital lobby trying to turn my own job into a weapon. That was her new move. She had failed to make me sign the waiver at home. failed to scare Carla Benton away quietly. And now she was trying to make me look dangerous in the one place where I had always been useful. Lisa did not raise her voice. That scared me more than shouting would have. She said, "Emily, I need one clean answer. Is there any reason your family should be involved in your fitness for duty today?" I said, "No." Lisa looked at me for one more second, like she was checking whether I understood the size of the line I had just drawn. Then she said, "Good. Then you and I are going downstairs together, and you are not going to have this conversation alone." Denise was standing near the security desk with Kyle beside her, and Kyle looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. He had his truck keys looped around one finger, the dealer tag still swinging from the ring. Denise was speaking in that soft, reasonable voice she used when she wanted strangers to feel lucky she had warned them in time. "She works nights," she was saying. "She's been confused. She's accusing everyone of stealing from her. I'm only trying to prevent something terrible." When she saw me, she tilted her head like I was a patient who had wandered off a unit. "Emily, honey, don't make this harder." Lisa stopped before Denise could step toward me. "Mrs. Harper, this is a workplace. If you have an emergency, you can contact local authorities. If you are here to interfere with staff, security will escort you out." Denise's face changed only a little, but I saw the first crack. She had expected tired little Emily to come down alone, embarrassed and blinking under fluorescent lights. She had not expected another woman to stand between us and treat her like a visitor with no rights. Denise adapted fast. "I'm not interfering," she said. "I'm her mother. She has been taken advantage of by a realtor and some woman at a credit union. She's about to lose her money because she won't listen." Then she reached into her purse and pulled out another copy of the waiver, folded in thirds like a church bulletin. "If she signs this, we can stop all of it. No police, no complaints, no damage to anyone." There it was. She had brought the same paper to my hospital, not because she thought I was unstable, but because she thought shame would make my hand move. I did not grab it. I did not explain the $42,000 to Lisa in the lobby. I said, "Mom, if this is about my mental state, why did you bring a financial release for me to sign at work?" Denise's mouth tightened. Kyle's keys stopped swinging. Lisa looked at the paper, then back at Denise, and the air shifted hard enough that even the security guard straightened. Denise tried to recover. "Families handle things privately," she said. "Emily is making private things public." I said, "You made them public when you called my cellar and my unit." Kyle muttered, "Mom, I told you this was stupid." Denise turned on him so fast her softness vanished. "Be quiet." It was the first time a stranger saw the version of her I knew. Kyle's face flushed, but he did not shut up. "No, you said she'd cave before closing. You said the truck would be fine once she signed. The dealer called me twice." The words landed in pieces, but they landed. The truck was not just a gift. It was a clock. Kyle had his own reason to keep me trapped, and Denise had promised him my silence as part of the payment. Lisa did not ask for the whole family story. She did the one thing I needed most. She made the boundary real. "Security," she said. "Escort them out. Mrs. Harper, do not contact this unit again. If you call here about Emily's private life, it will be treated as harassment." Denise's eyes stayed on me as the guard moved closer. "You're going to destroy your brother over a misunderstanding?" she said. That line should have cut me open. It would have 2 days earlier. This time I heard what she was really asking. She wanted me to keep paying for the family piece she had already sold. I went back upstairs with my hands cold and my badge clipped crooked to my scrub top. Lisa walked beside me until the elevator doors closed. Then she said, "I don't need details. I need to know if you can finish your shift safely." I said, "Yes." She nodded. "Then finish. After that, take care of your life like it is also worth protecting." She did not hug me. She did not make a speech. She handed me back my job by refusing to let Denise steal it in front of me. By 8:30, I was at the credit union with the hospital still on my skin and the noon deadline burning through my phone. Marcy was waiting before I reached her desk. She had the sealed envelope with the brass key on top, but she did not hand it to me in the lobby. She looked past my shoulder once, and that was when I saw why. Denise was already at the credit union counter, and this time she had not come to cry. She had come to get there first. Denise turned before Marcy could say my name, and her face changed fast, from sweet to injured, like she had rehearsed both versions in the car. Kyle stood beside her, pale and tired. his truck keys clenched in his fist. My mother said, "Emily, don't make me do this in front of people." At the hospital, she had tried to make me look dangerous. At the credit union, she tried to make herself look heartbroken. Marcy did not move from her chair behind the glass. She looked at me, not at Denise, and said, "Emily, you're on time." Those 3 words did more for my nerves than any speech could have. They meant the envelope was still there. They meant Denise had not talked her way into it. They meant the brass key had stayed out of her hands. Kyle whispered, "Just sign it, Em. Mom says she can fix the condo today." He said it like he was offering help, but the dealer tag hanging from his keys made the offer sound like a threat. Denise heard him and changed tactics again. She came closer, lowering her voice so the lobby would see a worried mother, not a woman cornered. "I spoke to Carla again," she said. "She is scared. I told her I could bring clean money and keep this from turning ugly." My stomach dropped, because that was not an empty threat. Carla did not know us. Carla only knew that an elderly man's condo sale now had a missing down payment, a mother calling with warnings, and a buyer who worked nights and looked like she had not slept in days. Denise did not need to prove I was unstable. She only needed to make me look like too much trouble. Marcy slid a sign-in card toward me. "Emily is the only member I'm speaking with at this desk," she said. Denise smiled at her with no warmth. "I'm her mother." Marcy kept her hand on the folder. "Then you can wait as her mother." It was a small sentence, but it shifted the air. Denise was used to places bending when she used that word. Marcy did not bend. Kyle looked at the floor, and for 1 second I saw how the whole machine worked. Denise did not need chains. She made ordinary people feel rude for closing a door. Marcy led me to a small office and shut the door before Denise could follow. She put the sealed envelope on the desk, then placed the brass key beside it. "Your father gave me instructions for this years ago," she said. "Before you ask, no, your mother is not on it." Hearing my father pulled into the room made my throat tighten. Denise had spent 2 days using him as a weapon, telling people I had taken from him, telling me I would ruin his care, telling Carla I was the kind of daughter who stole from an old man. Marcy pushed the envelope closer. "Open it yourself." Inside was a plain birthday card with my name in my father's blocky handwriting. The card had a coffee stain in one corner, the kind he always made because he never trusted a mug without filling it to the top. I opened it and found one sentence. "If you are reading this, you are trying to leave something that keeps calling itself home." Under the card was a credit union certificate in my name only, started with money I had sent my father years ago when I still believed I was helping both my parents. He had not spent it. He had moved it where Denise could not reach it. Marcy said, "It matured last month. After the hold, it covers your shortfall." For a second, I could not speak. The money did not feel like luck. It felt like my father had reached through all the noise and put one steady hand on the table, even though he had not been brave enough to do it out loud. That was the hardest part. He had seen more than he admitted. He had protected one piece of me, but he had still sat at the kitchen table while Denise tried to take the rest. I did not know how to forgive that. I only knew the certificate was real. Marcy tapped the paper. "I can issue a cashier's check today, but it does not erase the questions your seller has. It only proves you have the funds." That mattered. Money could keep the condo alive, but trust was still bleeding out. Carla still had to decide whether I was a safe buyer or a storm that would drag her father into court calls and family drama. "Make the check to the title company," I said. My voice sounded rough, but it did not shake. "Not to me. Not to my mother. Not to anyone who can turn it into another story." Marcy nodded once. Like that was the answer she had hoped I would choose. Then Marcy leaned back and said something I did not expect. "Your mother came in 20 minutes ago and asked if a family member could close an account for a daughter in crisis. I told her no. Then she asked whether a seller would be safer accepting funds from a parent instead. That was Denise's next cover. She would not say she stole from me. She would say she rescued me from my own mess." When I stepped back into the lobby, Denise was waiting near the brochure rack with her phone in her hand. Kyle stood 2 steps behind her, pale and trapped. Denise saw the envelope gone from my hand, and the key no longer on the desk. Her eyes moved once toward Marcy's office, then back to me. "What did you find?" she asked. I said, "Enough." That one word scared her more than an explanation would have. She reached for my arm, but Kyle caught her wrist before she touched me. It was not heroic. It was quick, almost accidental, but he did it. Denise looked at him like he had forgotten who owned his fear. Kyle let go fast, but the damage was done. He had stopped her once, in public, and we both knew she would not forgive him for it. I walked out with the cashier's check made payable to the title company, the brass key sealed back in my bag, and the noon deadline still ahead of me. Behind me, I heard Denise say Kyle's name in a voice so quiet it was almost worse than yelling. He did not answer. Denise followed me into the title office and told the receptionist, loud enough for the seller to hear, "My daughter is trying to buy a condo with money she took from this family." The cashier's check was in my hand, made out to the title company, not to me, and that was the first reason her voice cracked. The second reason was Kyle, standing 2 steps behind her, no longer beside her. Carla Benton had been sitting near the conference room door with a paper cup of coffee she had not touched. She looked at me, then at Denise, then at the envelope in my hand. I could see the sale slipping in her face, not because she believed Denise completely, but because nobody wants to hand over a home to a storm. Denise knew that. She had stopped trying to block the money directly, so now she was trying to make me look too dangerous to sell to. The closing agent came out and asked, "Is there a dispute over the buyer's funds?" Denise answered before I could. "There is a dispute over her judgment." Then she pulled the waiver from her purse, the same folded paper she had carried from my parents' kitchen to the hospital to the credit union, and smoothed it on the counter like it belonged there. "Emily signs this, and I will tell everyone here this can proceed. She refuses, and you are all accepting stolen family money." For 1 second, the old part of me wanted to explain everything. I wanted to talk about overtime shifts, skipped lunches, the condo inspection, the shortfall, my father's envelope, every little thing I had done right. But Denise had built her whole plan around making me defend myself until I sounded guilty, so I did not defend myself. I set the cashier's check on the counter and said, "The check is payable to your company. If Miss Benton wants to cancel, I will accept that. But my mother is not part of this purchase." Denise laughed once, sharp and ugly. "Listen to how cold she sounds. This is what I've been living with." Then she turned to Carla, softer now, motherly now, performing for the one person whose doubt could still hurt me. "I'm not trying to stop her from having a home. I'm trying to stop her from destroying the one she already has." That line would have worked on me 6 months earlier. It almost worked on Carla. Her hand moved toward her coffee, then stopped. Kyle stepped forward before I did. He took the truck keys out of his pocket and put them on top of Denise's waiver. The dealer tag clicked against the paper. It was a small sound, but it cut through the room. Denise stared at the keys like Kyle had slapped her. He said, "You told me the truck would be handled after Emily signed. You told me not to ask where the money came from. I asked anyway." Denise's face changed in pieces. First disbelief, then warning, then panic, covered with pity. "Kyle, don't do this in public." He looked sick, but he did not pick the keys back up. "I wanted the truck," he said. "I wanted out of borrowing rides and begging for shifts, but I'm not letting you buy it with Emily's life." That was not a polished apology. It was barely steady, but it was enough. Carla heard it. The closing agent heard it. More importantly, Denise heard that Kyle had stopped being useful. Denise changed tactics again. She reached for the keys, not to take them, but to hide the tag under her palm. "He is confused," she said. "He's under pressure. We all are. Emily's father would be ashamed to see his children turn on me like this." That was her last hook in me. My father's name. For years he had been quiet, and Denise had used that quiet like a signature. I felt the birthday card inside my bag, but I did not take it out. I did not need to make my father testify from paper. I only needed to stop letting Denise speak for him. I said, "Dad left something for me because he knew I would need a door you couldn't stand in front of." Denise's mouth opened, and I raised my hand, not high, not dramatic, just enough to stop her from taking the room back. "You can call me selfish. You can call me unstable. You can call this family money. I'm closing if Miss Benton still wants to sell. If she doesn't, I will walk out with the check and find another place. But I will not sign that waiver." The room went quiet in the practical way. Rooms go quiet when people are done pretending a thing is complicated. Carla stood up. She looked at Denise, then at Kyle's keys on the waiver, then at me. "Can you close today?" she asked. "Yes, I said. My voice did not shake. Carla nodded to the closing agent. Then I'm selling to her. Denise did not explode. That would have been easier for her to deny later. She went still, and stillness was worse, because it showed how fast she was counting what she had lost. No waiver. No redirected money. No truck bargain. No scene where I cried and made her look like the injured mother. She picked up the paper, but Kyle put 2 fingers on it before she could fold it away. Leave it, he said. It's done. Denise looked at him like he had become a stranger. And maybe he had. Maybe both of us had. The signing itself was almost plain, which made it feel unreal. I signed where the closing agent pointed. Carla signed after me. The cashier's check disappeared into the ordinary machinery of a sale, and for once, ordinary machinery protected me instead of trapping me. Denise stayed by the door until the agent told her only parties to the transaction could remain in the room. That sentence did what none of my pleading had ever done. It named her correctly. Not mother, not manager, not victim, not owner, just someone outside the transaction. When it was over, Carla handed me the condo keys across the table. They were silver, ordinary, and heavier than they looked. She did not apologize for hesitating, and I was glad she didn't. She only said, I needed to know the trouble wasn't going to own the place with you. I said, it won't. Kyle was gone when I stepped into the hallway. The truck keys were gone too, but Denise's waiver was still on the counter, crumpled under the receptionist's stapler, where nobody had meant to preserve it. That was the first consequence I could see. The paper that had chased me for days had become office clutter. The second consequence came before I reached the parking lot. Denise stood near the entrance with her phone in her hand, but no audience left to perform for. You'll regret making me look like this, she said. I believed she meant it. I also knew regret was no longer a bill she could mail to me. I said, do not come to my home. Do not come to my job. If you need to speak to me, write it down and wait for me to answer. Then I walked past her without checking whether she cried. That evening, I did not move much in. I brought 1 box from my car, because I wanted the first thing inside to be mine. Not borrowed, not rescued, not approved. Kyle sent 1 message after dark. I canceled the truck hold. I'm sorry. I did not answer right away. His apology did not fix what he had helped carry. But it did mean Denise had lost another hand on the rope. My father called once. I let it ring because I was not ready to hear him sound sorry after years of sounding helpless. Later, he sent 1 text. I should have said more. I'm glad you got the door. I sat on the kitchen floor and read it 3 times. Forgiveness did not arrive. Not that night. But the truth had finally come without my mother's voice wrapped around it, and that was enough for one day. I slept on a folded blanket because my bed was still at the apartment Denise knew. Before I turned off the kitchen light, I took the brass safe deposit key from my bag and set it beside the new silver condo key. The brass key opened almost nothing now, and that was why I kept it. It had done its job. The last thing I saw before the room went dark was the silver key lying teeth up on the bare counter, not waiting for anyone's permission.